Right, so very warm welcome to the railway industry at large. Thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Philippa Dean from Railways Africa magazine, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this, the first live stakeholder engagement open session for the Railway Safety Regulator, also known as the RSR. We're broadcasting live via LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can, depending on your choice of platform, ask any questions via the comments section under the live stream. And just to give you an idea, under the live stream, you can also send your questions via WhatsApp. The number is on screen. And we'd appreciate it if you could include your name and company in your WhatsApp question.
Good morning, everyone. I am Madeleine Williams, Executive for Media and Communications at the Railway Safety Regulator. I am thrilled to welcome you this morning at our first virtual stakeholder engagement session. We've been planning this for some time, and in the planning process, this looked very different to what we are doing here today. With everything that's been happening around us, all the changes, all the uncertainties, we had to change our plans slightly. So therefore, we are doing it in this form today. But one thing that has remained constant throughout the planning is our desire to engage the broader operator base. We are looking forward to doing this a couple of times this year. We've been promising that we will be reaching out to more than just the high-risk operators, but everyone in this space. Changes in regulation impacts all operators. That's why it's important for us all to be on the same page and to have the same understanding of what it impacts and how it impacts on us. Our role as the regulator is to oversee and promote safe railway operations through appropriate support, monitoring, and enforcement, guided by an enabling regulatory framework. It is important for us to ensure a clear path for communications with operators, not just the high-risk operators. Regulations change from time to time. This is information that all operators need to have access to. Therefore, sessions like these are important, and that was the thinking when we envisaged this platform, these type of discussions. I hope that today's session would give you an update on the important information, and would also give you an opportunity to ask the questions that you haven't been able to ask us. We are also pleased to announce a new industry collaboration today. We are very excited about this collaboration because as the regulator, we are of the view that this collaboration will have so many benefits, not just for us as the drivers of regulation, but for the industry as a whole. Once again, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed the session.
Thank you, Madeleine. Welcome back, everybody. For those of you who have just joined us, again, it is indeed an exciting day with the announcement of the industry collaboration, which we'll get into in a bit more detail in a moment. Again, for those of you who have just joined us, we are broadcasting live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you are unsure as to how to ask questions, you can, in either of the platforms that you have decided to join us on, use those. And if all else fails, you can WhatsApp us. And there is the WhatsApp details. I think we will now go on to the next presentation. The next presentation will be provided by Sepho Gari, the Railway Safety Regulator's Acting Chief Executive Officer. And the last time we spoke, we were talking with great excitement around the fourth industrial revolution and all the safety developments that this would bring to industry. And look at us now being all for IoT. So let me welcome Sepho to the floor.
Good morning, stakeholders. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for making yourself available for this session. With COVID-19, we are finding ourselves having to come up with new ways of interacting, and this is just one of the platforms that we have provided as RSR to make time to engage with yourselves. It gives me great joy to announce that on the 18th of August, we intensified our partnership with the Railroad Association by means of signing a memorandum of understanding. The RRA is a railway industry association whose principal activities are to represent members' interests to government regulators and stakeholders, amongst others. The signed agreement between the RSR and RRA mean that operators would have an option to join the RRA, which will in turn be able to perform the following functions: provide input into the development and review of industry standards, furnish the regulator with information for the purposes of information gathering and monitoring purposes, where required, provide industry support through the training of operators in order to promote operator compliance with the railway safety requirements. I wish to emphasize that collaborations such as these are provided for in the National Railway Safety Regulator Act, Section 7, 2B. Of the Act states that the regulator may formally recognize associations representing operators, including other railway industry enterprises, to collaborate with it in respect of the development of standards or any other matter that the regulator considers necessary. I am therefore confident that this partnership will enhance communication and relations and over time heighten rail safety across the rail industry. I look forward to improved and fruitful relations with all the stakeholders, and I hope that you, our valued industry role players, will feel the impact and experience the benefits of this collaboration. I thank you, and I wish you successful engagements during the course of the day. Thank you.
Tsepo, thank you very much for your presentation. I believe that this agreement will be beneficial for the rail industry at large, not just for permit holders, but for the rail sector. Marcella will be speaking more about the Railroad Association shortly, and I think really this is all about putting rail on government's agenda and being a catalyst. With that said, I am now going to welcome Reginald, who is the Senior Manager at the Rail Safety Regulator, specifically focused on railway planning. He's going to be talking about some of the changes and regulations coming through. Reginald?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you now. It looks like the other connection had problems, but I can hear you on this link.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so you're going to be doing this live, and hopefully I get all the screen numbers correct.
That's fine.
Whilst we, deal with all of these technical issues. All right, okay. So we'll start on the contents page.
All right. Okay, colleagues, my name is Reginald Njingila. As I was indicating, I'm going to be taking you through the regulatory tools that are used by the regulator. Then in terms of the contents page, let's look at what we're going to be covering. We'll be looking at who is the RSR, what the regulatory tools are that we use. Then I'm going to get into the details of those regulatory tools. I'll start with the published regulations. Then I'll talk to regulations that are under development. Then I'll talk about the determinations, the purpose of the various standards that we use. I'll address a little bit the standards that are the RSR standards and the SABS standards, and I'll just explain how do these standards relate to one another. So that will be basically what I'll be addressing today. Okay. If we look at who is the RSR, we are a statutory body formed through the RSR Act, which is Act 16 of 2002, which has been amended. In terms of the Act, our purpose or our role is to provide oversight on the railway industry We provide oversight on the railway transport while operators remain responsible for such safety within their areas of responsibility. So we do not operate trains or the railway system. We just provide oversight while the industry itself or the operators are responsible to operate safely. We are focused also on promoting improved safety performance. So we want to see the right metrics improving. We want to see that there is improvement, for example, in safety performance, where we've got occurrences. We want to see those occurrences decreasing, so that we can promote rail as a preferred mode of transport. Then we develop regulations that are required for us to be able to regulate the industry. We then monitor that there is compliance with the set regulations. So all the regulatory tools that we are publishing, that we use to regulate the industry, we do monitor that there is compliance in the industry with those tools. All of this then gives effect to the requirements of the Act. In terms of the tools that we use, the primary legislative tool that we use is our Act, as I've indicated. Then in terms of the hierarchy, the next level are your regulations. There are various regulations that have been developed and published in accordance with the various provisions of the Act. Then we have published various determinations, which are also as provided for in the Act. Then we have standards, as I've indicated. We have SABS standards, which are your SANS 3000 series of standards, and the dangerous goods standards. All of those are applicable within the railway industry. And we also have regulator standards. We have in the past also published some compulsory notices or compulsory directives, which requires the operators to meet those requirements. Okay. In terms of the regulations, I think this might sound like a little bit of a repeat, but these are developed in terms of the various provisions of the Act. So I'm not going to go into each of those provisions, but all the regulations that we have published, they are published in terms of those provisions in the Act. In terms of determinations, we have a safety management system determination. The first part is in terms of Section 23, paragraph 3, sub A, which deals with the format of the SMS. Then, if you look at the SMS determination, the B part of it, it deals with the SMSR, which is the Safety Management System report. So there's the details of the form and the content of both the SMS or the Safety Management System and the SMSR are captured within that determinations. Now, then we get to the standards that we have discussed. Our Act makes provision for the regulator to adopt standards which have been developed in accordance with a regulation or as prescribed by the minister. So if you look at Section 29(1) of the Act, it says that the minister publishes the regulations that governs how the standards gets developed, which has been done, and that regulation is in existence. We are currently in the process of updating that regulation. So we develop standards as guided by that regulation, and then we adopt various standards which makes them enforceable. Okay. Okay, there's a list of the various regulations that we have that are currently in force. I've mentioned the first one, which deals with the procedures to be followed in the development of standards for safe railway operations. As I've indicated, that one is currently under review. Then we have a penalty fee regulation, which has been published in 2011 and amended in 2013. That is still in force at this stage. Then we have a determination of safety permit fees, which is published under Section 22 of the Act. And that is a determination that is published by the minister annually. And that's the determination that gives the industry an indication of the fees that are payable for the safety permits. Okay, then we have that regulation that deals with the SMS report and the railway occurrences. That one was published in 2004. As you would notice, when I get further on, we have regulations which are currently under development, which will also supersede some of these regulations. Now, the first one that is under development is the Safety and Security Regulation. This regulation was published in February for public comments. We have received the comments from the public, and we are currently dealing with those comments. So the intention is to make sure that once the comments have been addressed and once the necessary processes have been undergone, we want to get this regulation promulgated so that it assists us with dealing with safety and security related matters in the industry. The next one is the Safety Standards Development Regulation. It is an update of the standard of the regulation that I've mentioned already. It also gives direction in terms of the development of safety standards for safety in the railway industry. This one has also been published in Feb for comments. Unfortunately, colleagues, the comment stage, we opened for comments and it closed already. I think we gave it, it was given 60 days. We are currently addressing the various comments that we have received. Then we have also published a regulation together with the DOT, which was published in March. This is a regulation regarding the category and type of all notifiable railway occurrences which are to be reported to the RSR. So all occurrences that occur in the industry are required to be reported to the Railway Safety Regulator. And those occurrences, that regulation provides the guidelines as to the requirements for reporting. If you get a bit into a bit of detail as to what those regulations that we have published addresses, for example, we start with the safety and security regulations. It provides for the management of security matters to the extent that these security matters affect safe railway operations. So it deals with things that are security related, like theft, like vandalism, which affect railways, our railway system. We know that our railway system is an open system which is accessible, so which makes it vulnerable to such security incidents. Now, this regulation is intended to assist us with providing the requirements of what is it that the regulator expects of the operators to do, to curb or to manage the security and safety occurrences within the industry. Okay, then the next regulation that is that has been published is the Safety Standards Development Regulation. I think I've touched on this. It provides for the initiation, development, adoption, and the implementation of the railway safety standards. If I may touch on this, the initiation of standards, this may be done by railway industry stakeholders. It can be railway associations. It can be the regulator. So this regulation makes provision for those standards to be developed. And it also gives guidelines to the regulator and to the industry in terms of the adoption and the implementation of these standards. It also points out the procedures to be followed in the development of these safety standards. It addresses the local standards, it addresses the industry, national, and the regulator standards. Okay. Then the last regulation that has been published for comments, which we have received comments for, is the regulations regarding the category and the type of notifiable railway occurrences. I've mentioned that this seeks to ensure that all notifiable occurrences are adequately managed. So it's not just that we want these to be reported to the Railway Safety Regulator. We want these occurrences to be adequately managed within the operator safety management system. Yes, issues like reporting to the RSR are addressed. What we expect in terms of management of these occurrences are addressed, and there's various sets of information that we need to have received as far as the occurrences are concerned. For example, there are reports that we do receive. There's 24-hour reports, there's daily reports, there's immediate reporting, there's also quarterly reporting of these occurrences, so that we can keep track of whether we're making progress in curbing the scourge of the occurrences. So these are the regulations that are currently under development. We are expecting that we will get them published during the course of this financial year, so that they give necessary direction to the industry. Okay, I think this one we have not published. We are also busy with a regulation, that is intended to ensure that there is safety of persons, property, and the environment. These regulations, it's coined reserve regulations, is actually to protect the railway reserves. Yes, it might be published with a different or technical name, but typically it will deal with the risks associated with things such as people being struck by trains due to their proximity to the railway lines. It will deal with unsafe operating conditions. For example, we know that when there's encroachment to the railway line or section, this present unsafe operating conditions. It also mitigates, or it also intended to mitigate risk to property in the event of incidents and derailments. It also seeks to deal with risks related to interruptions of services. It also deals with things such as clearance of vegetation, and also to address issues related to interference with our entire system, basically. Okay, I think this one we have not published yet for comment, so please be on the lookout. So we will communicate to the industry when it comes out, so that we get the input and the engagements from the industry. Now, in terms of determinations, we have the determination of the form and the format, the form, and the content of the SMS that is required for the different categories and types of the safety permits. So for different types of permits, we require different sets of information. So this determination gives that format of that SMS submission and the content that needs to be accompanying your application for the safety permit. We have also published a determination on the VSCC. It provides a protocol on or the guideline in terms of managing verbal safety critical communications. Then I think that one I mentioned, that annual determination, it's a permit fee determination, which I believe that the industry is familiar with. In terms of the standards that we have published, the purpose of the railway safety standards, I think we're familiar with, but just so that we are also on the same page. The standards provide the minimum requirements for the management of safe railway operations. So when you say minimum requirements, it means that the operators are able to meet this, should meet the standards, and are able to provide the additional measures to minimize safety incidents, or to manage railways safely. So it doesn't mean that you are limited to these requirements of the standards. So that is why they are minimum requirements. We want to ensure that the railway operations are managed uniformly. We want to ensure that there's reduction of railway occurrences with these standards. We want to provide a standard measure against which all operators will be measured for compliance. In other words, if we have a standard for compliance and you are an operator, you have a permit, it means it applies to you. So we need to measure the same, need to use the same yardstick to measure everyone. It also informs the permit application guides, and we also use these standards when we train the industry in what we call the technical workshops. So once we have published these tools, we go around in the country and we provide an orientation to the operators. So we use the same tools, including these standards, to provide that orientation. That addresses the purpose of why we use the standards. Okay, we've got a set of published standards that are in force, that applies to the railway industry. And please take note that these standards apply to you if you operate within our system. However, for example, if you look at standards like transportation of dangerous goods, if you don't move dangerous goods, that means that standard will not apply to you. But if you have all the elements that are addressed in those various standards, it means you need to look at those standards to understand the requirements that you need to comply with. So the main standard is SANS 3000-1 of 2016, which is the overall SMS standard. Then the next set of standards, which are also under the 3000 series, they are substandards to the 3000-1, which means they elaborate on the various provisions of the main standard. The -2-1 deals with electrical distribution and overhead traction systems. -2 deals with track and associated civil infrastructure, and the next substandard deals with level crossing. So if you look at those standards that we have under the 3000 series, they provide more detail, or they elaborate on the requirements which are covered under SANS 3000-1. I think that is the list of the standard, or the list of standards that we have currently that are in force, that are used by the regulator, which the industry needs to comply with. And we also have regulator standards which have been published. If we can just show the regulator standards, we have the RSR 00-3, which are the occurrence management standards. We have the RSR 23-1, which deals with wheels, axles, and bearings. As you can see, occurrence management is an extension of an element in the SMS. Wheels, axles, and bearings is an extension, or it provides more details on the rolling stock standard. So this one focused specifically on the requirements with regards to wheels, axles, and bearings. Then we have the fatigue management standard. It provides the detailed requirements of one of the elements of the human factors management standards. So if we look at it in terms of hierarchy, it is the SMS on top. Then if we use the human factors management, it's a 3000-4, which is a sub-element of the SMS. Then if we look at now the regulator standard, which is 00-4-1, that standards then provide more details, more detailed requirements with regards to fatigue management. We've noticed that one of the issues that we have encountered in the industry is fatigue, because we know that we operate in most instances a 24-hour service. So fatigue is one of the issues that needs to be managed to curb or to minimize the risks in the industry. So that standard provides those detailed requirements in terms of what is expected from the operator to manage fatigue within the railway system. So that's how the standards relate to one another. So we've got a 3000 series of standards, and The main one is 3000-1. Then the ones that are supporting these standards, we call them substandards, and they have the 3000 is a series. Then the two succeeding numbers gives an indication of the area which they focus on, and that covers our standards that are used in the industry. Basically, these are the regulatory tools that we use to regulate the industry. Yes, I've dealt with the main regulatory tool, our Act. I've dealt with the regulations, the various regulations that have been published, and the determinations together with the RSR and the national standards. So these constitute a suite of tools that are used by the regulator to regulate the industry. I'm hoping that the colleagues out there and the industry role players are familiar with these tools, and where they are not familiar, the regulator is available to assist to give that guidance where it's required. I think this addresses the key points that I wanted to address. I think I'll hand it back. I'll hand it back over to you to then take us through the next phases of the session. Then we can address the questions as they address. Over to you, Philippa.
Thank you very much, Reginald, and well done on doing that perfectly. Mosela is no stranger. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Railroad Association, an organization that is the mouthpiece for the rail industry and is well known to all of us. Mosela, I'm going to let you take it away.
Good morning, Philippa, and good morning to the rest of the industry. My name is Mosela Ntlapo. I represent the Railroad Association. Who we are is we are a representative of companies that are original equipment manufacturers, companies that manufacture components for the railway industry, operators, private and public, and also associated industries in this space. But we are also a fully fledged export council that is established and supported through the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We also have partnerships with TITA. We are an employer representative at TITA. And our relationship in this instance with the Railway Safety Regulator is informed by the Act under Section 72B, which provides that the regulator may recognize or formally recognize an association that will work with the regulator in terms of developing industry standards and any other issue or challenge that the regulator may deem necessary. So in a nutshell, as an industry body, our goals for the railway sector, particularly pre-COVID and post-COVID, it has changed the face of the railway industry. We stand for to revitalize the railway sector, to transform the railway sector, and to advocate for policies that we may consider to be appropriate or maybe lacking in substance, or even contribute in terms of generating new policies. We are also an important stakeholder in terms of bringing the right stakeholders from public and private sector to act in the best interest of our industry. We also firmly believe that the railways will be the backbone to revitalize the economy of South Africa and the continent, particularly looking at the instruments such as the CFTA, which has recently been accepted by the majority of the states on the continent, and also the vision of the African Union to have an integrated Africa. But most importantly, that integration must rely on the potential that is offered by the African people, particularly its youth and women. So that will be the Africa we want. So the revitalization, and particularly I want to spend a little bit focus on the transformation that we normally work on as a sector, South Africa, and looking at where we come from as a country. It's like a triple BE, and I think we are at a stage that we have transformed in terms of the basics of a BEE, but we need to start transforming the sector. It's a complete change of the status quo, which will move towards an environment that supports, that stimulates, and unlocks economic value, bringing about an entirely different level of effectiveness. On the advocacy space, as I've mentioned earlier, is to create, promote, enhance, change, or eradicate policies, processes, practices, and functions for the express benefit of the sector and the industry in general. Our objectives on how we will achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves includes collaboration, the standardization of which we have interesting views on it, sustainability of the sector, partnerships that will be key in terms of achieving our goals as the association, but as a sector as well, investment that will have to bring about the revitalization and growing the industry from South African perspective and also from the continent perspective. With collaboration, what we're specifically looking at is that, and also a complete transformation of the sector, is that at some point, and hopefully very, very soon, and maybe still this year, that we need to have access to the network. We need to have, as an industry, transform the old ways of doing things, where we have almost still a monopolistic type of environment in the sector. So if we really want to grow the sector, we need to have an increased public-private partnership or private sector participation in terms of increasing the efficiency in the sector. And that collaboration can only be achieved through partnerships with the likes such as Transnet, Department of Transport, or even the presidency. Because if we want to grow as a country, we need to be aligned in terms of our objectives. We also need to have a way of speeding up the legislation. The national rail transport policy, it's somewhere. And if we can get to a place where we are in a conversation with the Department of Transport and set reasonable timelines as to the adoption or the ratification of the policy, and most importantly, to understand the value that will be unlocked by private sector participation. I've already alluded to CFTA. CFTA, increasing trade, intra-Africa trade. Say at the moment we're looking at about 15%. If we really want to increase intra-Africa trade, the only way and the cheapest way and the greenest way to do that is through rails. We can simply do 15% in the next few years, maybe less than 5 years. We can achieve what Europe at least is looking at in terms of maybe 67%. Even if we can get just close to 50%, it will revive the economy in South Africa, on the region, and the rest of the continent. Now, with standards, the standards that have been previously been there, and maybe some of the standards that are in place from the Railway Safety Regulator point of view, from some of the OEMs, from some of the state-owned entities, where industry is forced, for lack of a better word, to comply with Europe-based standards, of which those standards are over the top, and we may need to get into a serious conversation that if we want to grow our sector, we need to have standards that are fit for purpose, for our environment. That is going to be key to revive the sector. There is no way that a Misila Pty Ltd, that is a SMME, would be able to pay 2 million rands to get a certification from an American standards body. It's unheard of. The market in South Africa is open for other participants in the world, but South Africa, with the standards that we have barriers in terms of accessing the international market. So we need to claim rightfully what is ours as a sector. We have been a closed economy. We are capable. We have skills. Yes, there's a room for improvement, but the standards that we have in place must work for us. It cannot exclude us and basically benefit the international market and leave the South African market destitute to no end. The other processes from the commercial perspective could be addressed with the OEMs, Treasury, and government at large. But for standards, it should not be a negotiable. If my government promises me that they're going to revitalize the sector, if my government says they're going to be local content, if my government says they want to increase employment, that can only be achieved through the participation of private sector. We create employment. Government enables private sector to create employment. We want to work with government, but the current way of doing business is not sustainable for us as a country, the region, and the continent. If we want to empower women in this country, we need to open up this sector. We often get invited to conferences to talk about women in rail, women in what. I have kindly declined such invitations because as a woman, we've been talking this conversation for a long time. I think there must be consequences for state-owned entities that do not spend a certain percentage of their budget towards women-owned companies. If you want to transform this sector, if you want to reduce gender-based violence in South Africa, empowerment of women is going to be key to deal with some of the social ills of this country. So rail must open up. Philip, I'm not done. We need to create a sustainable environment for the rail sector, meaning that in terms of production and supporting the railway sector, we need to control the entire value chain. That in itself is key. But I want to move maybe quickly forward to the partnerships we have, which are going to be critical. Department of Transport, Department of Public Enterprises, National Treasury. And interestingly, we recently wrote to National Treasury because of PRASA's inability to pay suppliers. We were assured by the minister that there are plans in the short, medium term to resolve the issues. But in terms of the Railway Safety Regulator and the partnership that is in place, if you are participating in this space, in the railway sector, if you want to be heard, if you want to improve standards that you think that may or may not be sufficient for our purpose, here's a vehicle, which is the Railway Safety Association. Join the association, be heard, because as what we are today, we are going to be the only link between private sector and the regulator. But further to that, as part of our working relationship, RRA will establish a technical team that will work with the regulator in terms of resolving these issues. Therefore, if you want to be heard, if you want to make sure that those permit guides are reasonable and are fit for purpose, we should not have a permit application that is applicable to Transnet as an elephant and to a Misela that is entering the market. The transformation needs to show there in terms of the the process that will allow new entrants into the market. The standards themselves should not be a barrier for new entrants into the market. But in closing, open access is a non-negotiable. We must have. It's actually in the best interest of everybody concerned in South Africa to have open access. And what I would like to achieve, at least from this meeting, I would like to have a formal statement, or even later afterwards, from the Railway Safety Regulator. Is there anything today, legislatively, that prevents a limited access to the network? If that is not the case, can we then have a conversation with Transnet to try out the system?
Marcella, I'm really sorry. I'm getting under lots of pressure here from timekeeping points of view. We are going to go into questions. For those of you who are, there is a WhatsApp number that you can use, and if you give me 2 seconds, I will put it on the screen. There is the WhatsApp number. You can use that. I'm now going to welcome the presenters, being Freddie. Hi, Freddie.
Hello, Philippa. Hello, everyone again.
I'm going to hide that. Marcella, if she hasn't shot me yet. So welcome all my presenters. We have received quite a few questions. And I think the best way to monitor or figure out how we're going to answer these is that I will ask the question and then you just raise your hand to be answering them. I think that's the best way of doing it. So let's just begin with you.
Yes.
You're gonna. Do you have a question you want to answer?
Yes. Yeah, maybe if I can just assist Philippa, just to help everyone out, maybe Marcella as well, just to set context as well. In terms of access, we are not an economic regulator, so issues of financial or access to the networks, we are not in that space. But this is what we do. We issue permit to all operators who can demonstrate to us that they are able to have safety arrangements to manage their operations through an SMS. We issue those safety permits, and then they would then need to negotiate with a Transnet for access agreements and everything. Just that I should clear that up. Yeah. But from the RSR, there is we don't have any barriers. We just need to demonstrate to us that you are able to manage safety through this safety management system. No other barrier.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so let's start with some of the questions that have come through. Reginald, I know that you touched on vandalism briefly in your presentation. So if we take the state of prices infrastructure currently and the number of overhead lines that are rendering corridors unusable, surely this can't continue. How concerned is the RSR about the extent of vandalism taking place within the PRASA network? And maybe speakers, those of you who are not going to be responding to the question that I just asked, maybe just put yourselves on mute if you're able to. So Reginald, do you want to take this question?
Okay, I will go first, it's fine. Obviously, we are definitely concerned with regards to the vandalism, the theft, the rampage that we are seeing out there on our networks. As I've indicated earlier, we as a regulator provide only oversight in terms of our involvement in managing railway safety. We don't necessarily operate. We're not going to go into the railway operational space to take over the activities that the operator must engage in to secure their assets. However, we are concerned because the vandalism, the theft, disruptions of services have a direct impact on safe railway operations. So we therefore require that operators, together with the application for their safety permits included in their SMS, they need to demonstrate or indicate to the regulator that this is how they are going to manage safety. This is how they are going to secure their assets. To that extent, I am aware that PRASA, for example, have submitted a security management plan that seeks to address the concerns that we all are raising in the industry. Now, our role is to monitor that the operator executes this plan, and when this plan is not working, when it is not achieving the results that we want it to achieve, then we do engage. We've got regular engagements with the operators to review the performance against this plan. So to check that these are the things that have been put in place to deal with the security measures. We keep track of whether they are working or not, and where they are not working, then we require that additional control measures are put in place which can curb the scourge. Now, I think the past few months have presented a unique escalation where our network has not been used because of the lockdown. Now, that presented, unfortunately, an opportunity for those crazy people out there to vandalize our assets. So I don't think that the safety or the security management plan that has been submitted by the operators anticipated this kind of scourge or issue in the industry. Now, I expect that now we are ramping up our operations. We are going to have to revisit those plans to see to it that we normalize this situation. But we are engaging the operators as far as that is concerned.
Thank you, Reginald. Yes, Freddie, and then Masala.
Yeah, just to add on, we are very concerned. Just to add on, for example, on process safety permit, we have attached a condition that says that this security management plan that Reggie just alluded to, we attached a condition that says that we must really look at that management plan to see if it's fit for purpose. Yeah, but
Okay. All right. No. We'll just get in touch with Reginald now and tell him he's got a problem. I mean, Freddie. Reginald, would you be able to finish answering that?
Okay. Look, I think Freddie has addressed it. It was just to emphasize that accompanying the permit application was the security management plan, and one of the conditions for PRASA, as an example, was that this security management plan must address the issues that we have in the industry. So we are monitoring this regularly as a permit condition. So we need to, I think, go back to it and see that it addresses the recent resurgence of these occurrences.
All right. And then, Masela, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes. I think one of the important reasons that we as RSR and RRA are partnering is to educate the industry on the role of RSR and what does a regulator, what it does, where it starts, where it ends. And also there's been some noises around RSR not doing their work, and even other people suggesting that the regulator needs to be maybe perform under the Civil Aviation Authority to that effect. Rail is a specialized field. RSR is doing a fantastic work, but as industry, we need to work with RSR. The infrastructure, the problems of the infrastructure should be addressed by the owner of the infrastructure. RSR's duty is to make sure that the safety permit is complied with in terms of the regulations and everything else. But what is key and what everybody should appreciate is that PRASA is not the only operator in South Africa. RSR has over 230 permit holders that would need to comply with safety regulation. So therefore, we cannot and should not judge the work of RSR and using PRASA as a benchmark. PRASA have problems, and RSR, it's my belief that they are working with PRASA to resolve and assist them to get to a standard that is acceptable to the regulator. And further to that, with regards to accidents and all that, yes, the regulator can go and investigate, but there has been court cases where it has been found that PRASA ultimately, as a state-owned entity, has the responsibility to ensure safety of passengers on the network or in their trains. So the responsibility for safety of passengers, or at least the human beings within PRASA, lies directly with PRASA. And if I may quote the judgment, which was a constitutional court judgment, it says safeguarding the physical well-being of passengers was a central obligation of a public carrier, including PRASA. Well, PRASA in this instance, this duty is further reinforced by a specific constitutional obligation to protect passengers' bodily integrity that rests with PRASA as an organ of state. So we must be able to differentiate the two. This is what the RSR does, and the responsibility, therefore, that lies with an operator, it's something else. And then, Freddie, with regard to clarification on permit fees, the permit fees or anything that's concerning cost, that conversation will be had with the Department of Transport. We understand and appreciate that the Railway Safety Regulator is concerned with safety and all related issues around safety, but not necessarily economic measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ella. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so I get to a question that has come through around walkie-talkie communication between train driver and shunter. Does this have to be recorded in ring-fenced operations that have only one local operating, no control office? If so, why? When the risks are much lower than on mainline operations, the driver self-authorizes on site or shunter permission at reduced speeds. The operations are always working under so-called abnormal train working rules, and there are technical challenges which involve raising the cost of doing business without adding much value. Did you get all of that?
Yeah, we did. If I can take a first step, look.
Yeah.
We seem to be having a signal issue on Freddie's side. Can you hear me, Philippa?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Look, the intention is not to burden the operator with unnecessary costs. The important thing is that we need to understand that there are risks associated with running our trains, operating our system, communicating safety critical messages. Now, these risks differ or vary in terms of the extent or the seriousness or the impacts and so on. Now, the question that you was raised was specific to a small operation. Obviously, the risks associated in that case will be minimal. However, we need to mitigate all risks. And I think the important thing, therefore, is for the operator to engage the RSR. I think what needs to be clear is that when there's regulatory requirements and they are clear that they apply to all. You need to then, should there be a need for an exemption, we are open to be engaged as the RSR to look at unique cases. Recording of messages is critical because it assists us when we investigate occurrences, so that we can put measures in place that deals with recurrences. We don't want occurrences to reoccur. So that is one of the reasons why we want these messages or these conversations to be recorded. Now, if as an operator you believe that your risks are minimal, remember you've got your standard operating procedures. We've got train working rules that govern these kind of areas. So it's important that you approach the RSR and indicate your case, that my case is unique in this manner, and I'm therefore applying for this kind of an exemption, which we can look at. However, if you are an operator, you cannot just decide that I'm not gonna meet this regulatory requirement because I'm a small operator, because it's about the risks. There's no operator who can tell me out there that they are operating a system which is without risks. So for us to be satisfied that the risks are managed adequately, we need those tools that we have published, complied with. Otherwise, where there's a need to give exemptions, we need to be approached.
Thank you very much. I've got you spoke about the exemptions, and that was another question that was asked. Does the standard does not state that exemptions can be applied for? Is this exemption a general rule for all RSR standards?
I'm not sure which standard we are referring to. Is that coming from the question? Is it specific?
No, it's not specific. It just says this. The standard does not state that exemptions can be applied for. Is this exemptions a general rule for all RSR standards? So in other words, if there's an exemption required, it doesn't matter which standard it is, one can apply for it.
I see that. Okay, I see Marcella has got her hand.
Okay, sorry, Marcella, I'll be there now. There you go.
Hi. With regard to exemption, and I go back to the purpose of this conversation and having an association that will be working with the regulator. And I think there are a lot of things that as an industry we are not aware of. And when we start the engagement with the regulator, more things will become clearer. We'll start understanding better of what exemptions can be applied for and what will be the process to apply for those exemptions. And I think it may not necessarily be maybe RSR can't give an answer in the absolute without knowing exactly which standards is being referred to. But I think it's a conversation that we need to have with industry, that technical team from RRA that will be working with RSR. Those are the issues that we'll having a conversation with and working together with RSR to clear them up. So I think that that will be worked through between RRA and RSR. So the individual that asked the question or anybody that asked the question, the platform will be RRA so that we can communicate one message to the regulator. Thank you.
Thanks very much. There you are, Freddie. I see that you are back. Another question that's just come in.
That's fine.
What measures are in place pertaining to the COVID pandemic? Is rail in operation or intending to be in operation? And that is for freight and passenger. So I'm not sure if that person is saying, all right. So this person is saying what measures are in place pertaining to the COVID pandemic. And we've had a similar question that says, have the regulations issued for COVID been updated to accommodate the level 2 legislative updates? Who wants to take that?
Okay, if I may maybe take that one, then Freddie can perhaps add. Yes, the Department of Transport has published a regulation that deals with COVID. If you look at the regulation, it was published in March. It's a direction which is made under Section 27(2) of the Disaster Management Act, which provides for measures to address, to prevent, and to combat the spread of COVID-19 in the railway industry. So yes, there is a regulation that makes provision for the industry to deal with the COVID pandemic. And I will direct the operators and our colleagues out there to please understand the requirements of these regulations, so that you are familiar with what it seeks to achieve. But I think maybe if I can just highlight in brief, the purpose of that regulation is to provide the measures to prevent and to mitigate the risks associated with COVID-19. It relates to facilities, to stations, to exchange yard. It talks to passengers, railway staff, and freight traffic. So yes, we do have a regulation that focuses or is geared towards addressing COVID pandemic, or managing the impact of COVID pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I just add on very quickly? Can I just add on with that regulation? I must point out that operators are expected to report to the RSR all cases of suspected and confirmed COVID infections. We have an email address that I will share later on. So I don't have it ready now. That I will share later on. So those cases we are supporting environment. We are expected to report those cases to safety regulator. Thank you.
Thank you, Reginald. Freddie, thank you. Yes, Marcella.
I'm not going to comment on the regulation per se, but I want to say that COVID actually is an instrument that we should take very seriously in terms of promoting why we should move from road to rail. Less human interaction, particularly referring to the freight side of the business. We should use this opportunity to have a business case to move from road to rail. It's cheaper, less human contact. You can transport a lot in bulk, but most importantly, you also save the cost of the maintenance of the roads. So for me, COVID is a plus for the railway sector, particularly for freight markets, that we need to move from road to rail. It's safer, less human contact, and there's no reason why we should not carry on using rail post-COVID.
And quickly, the email address is covid19reporting@rsr.org.za. covid19reporting@rsr.org.za. Thank you.
All right, we'll put that up on the screen as well and make that part of the presentation, a post presentation. Also, the next question I have is the VSCC. When will the industry be measured on the regulation? Who do we contact from the RSR to assist the industry to develop proper measures with regard to the VSCC? I'm not quite sure what the VSCC. I think that's the vandalism and security one. No? Okay. I'm going to leave it to you.
Okay. Maybe just to clarify that one, this is a verbal safety critical communication protocol. This is a determination that gives guidance as to what is it that we expect of the operator in terms of managing those safety critical messages. We're talking about things like giving instructions to train drivers out there when there's communication, for example, between the TCO and the driver. Those we regard as safety critical communications, and these are defined, I think, within the various standards, especially the human factors management standards. Now, if I may touch a bit on this, we have developed this to give guidance to the industry, because we have seen that one of the issues that was highlighted in some of the occurrences in the reports that we have received was that they pointed to the failure in these communications as root causes to many of our collisions. Now, this is why we worked with, actually we developed this together with the industry to give guidance as to what things do we expect or what things need to be in place when you put together, when you manage these verbal safety critical communications. We talk to things like handshaking, confirming messages, when you're going to execute the instructions. We're talking to things of how the messages are relayed, how do you make sure that the locations are confirmed, or for example, end of authority, end of movement authority locations, those kind of things. These are the things that we are addressing in that protocol. Now, when publishing it, we indicated to the industry that the industry has been given 2 years to familiarize itself with the requirements of this protocol, to introduce it in their industry, and incorporate it in the SMS and their various procedures. So we have given this as these 2 years as a transitional period during which we are engaging the operators. The operators are required to submit to us the plan to implement these requirements. So we will manage that compliance or the introduction of the updated SOPs according to the plans that we have received from the operators. But in essence, or in brief, we're giving the operators 2 years, and we know that we've had quite a few concerns from the operators' point of view with regards to the effectiveness of these requirements. But I think it was on the issues of technicality and not on issues relating to whether this is of value to the industry. This guideline is intended to assist the industry to make sure that the communication-related occurrences are addressed. So we are still availing ourselves as the regulator to be engaged with regards to guidance in terms of implementing this. But in terms of a general rule, we have given 2 years. So we won't enforce compliance with before that 2 years, and we are actually availing ourselves to assist the industry to implement this effectively. It's not just about monitoring compliance, it's about improving safety in our environment. So we are opening our doors to the industry. Please do ask us. We have conducted training sessions to try and give direction as to what is it that we expect from the industry in terms of meeting these requirements. And we still are opening our doors as a regulator to assist.
One question that came in on the same topic, Reginald, whilst you were talking, is they get the VSCC protocol. Is it only applicable to TFR and PRASA or all operators? And I've had some comments that they have never heard about this protocol before.
Okay. Look, if there's some operators who've never heard of our tools before, it's an unfortunate thing. We did as much as we could to create awareness, but it looks like we need to do more for this to be understood. No, the short answer is that no, it does not apply only to Transnet. The reason being it's that, remember, operators traverse on each other's networks. Okay, so if you're an operator, you're going to get an instruction to proceed beyond a signal or beyond a control point, as an example. You may be getting that instruction from PRASA or from TFR. So we must make sure that we apply the same rules for everyone, so that we don't send mixed messages. Interoperability is inherent in our industry, so it's important that we use the same rules. So the short answer, no, it does not only apply to PRASA and Transnet. It applies to if you are operating trains and you will be receiving safety critical instructions from any other operator, that means you need to comply with the requirements. Look, I think one of the questions that has been raised was, if I don't touch a train and I just operate a private siding, and it's just it's Transnet who's running the shunt car, who access my balloon through the chutes and out again. Engage us and convince us that you are not involved in receiving and transmitting of any of these communications. And then you can look at assessing the risks that are involved within your yard. Then a decision can be taken.
Thank you. All right, so up next, sorry, Marcella, did you want to say something?
From the monitoring point of view, particularly from the Railway Safety Regulator, and I am aware that some operators or permit holders would like to see an RSR inspector visiting them on a regular basis. But the question of safety, does not only lie with RSR, it lies with you, me. If you want to operate in the rail space, it is in everybody's best interest to operate in a safe way, and that complies with the regulation and the act. But I just wanted to put it out that it is everybody's responsibility to make sure that we operate in a safe environment, not only RSR. And also RSR is not a principle that is going to come with a stick to punish people. I think RSR is there to assist us to provide a safe environment for the railway industry. I think that is important to highlight. Thanks.
Thanks, Marcella. Okay, I've got some more here, so are you ready? Previous occurrences where communication failure was prevalent are linked to human factors deficiencies. However, the Verbal Safety Critical Communication Regulation does not explicitly put requirements in place for human factors related risks to be managed, making these human factors issues implicit has in the past led to operators not implementing human factors interventions. Will the RSR have programs to try and close this gap?
Maybe Freddie, you will want to go on this one.
Yeah, you will assist Reginald, maybe.
Yes,
but I think a short answer is that there's a separate tool or a separate. We have some frameworks, but very important. We have this a standard on human factors management, and that broadly addresses all the issues like fatigue or any human factor management issue. That will broadly, it provides for those minimum requirements to manage human factors risks. Yeah, so there's a different standard on it. It's not covered on this VSSC protocol. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcella, you wanted to add, and then we'll go to Reginald.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to re-emphasize, Philippa, that through the RRA and this partnership, this will be a vehicle that private sector or permit holders will be able to raise these issues. No system is perfect. And seeing that we are the companies that operate in this space where we identify gaps, there should be a platform where we address these issues with the regulator. We can't expect the regulator to know everything, but we need to work with the regulator to ensure that we close those loop gaps.
Reginald, do you want to add?
Okay, I think Freddie has already highlighted 2004. Okay. Yeah, I think Freddie was just highlighting to us that the standard that deals with human factors management. Maybe what I need to point out to our colleagues out there is that we have a suite of tools that we use. We have, I've mentioned the regulations, the determinations, the standards. There's a set of standards, both the national standards and the RSR standards. These should be looked at jointly, or one should read all these tools together. The VSCC deals with only a particular element that has been cited as a high risk. So there are other tools that deals with various elements of the SMS or of safety requirements in the industry. For example, we've got a standard that deals with dangerous goods. Yes, dangerous goods is mentioned in the SMS determination and the standard. However, the dangerous goods standard is very specific. It deals with a particular issue of managing, transporting, and handling dangerous goods. So it's important that you please look at these standards as a suite of standards. The VSCC deals with yes, one element, but the other elements are covered within the human factors management standard. Thank you.
All right. So just on that VSCC question that we had earlier, the 2 years is the 2 years is it 2020 to 2022, and is that according to the RSR financial year? And then the part of who we contact is not clear. Which department within the RSR?
Okay, let me deal with that quickly. We had, when we engaged the industry, I think maybe we just need to recommunicate this. The 2 years we started it at the end of June. Yes, we have received some requests already for extensions and those kind of things, and we are engaging the operators according to the plans that they are. But it is from end of June. You can count 24 months from then. But please, let's submit those plans. Just indicate to us, informing us this is my plan to introduce this within my space, so that we can use that to engage each other. So this it does not necessarily talk to our financial year. That's how the 2 years is calculated.
Okay, so some other things that I've had come in is...
Sorry, Philippa, sorry, maybe I didn't address the second part of the question.
Okay.
In the document, we have specified the contact details for people to be contacted. It is in my department. My name, my number is there. I may be contacted. Matsilanyane is there, who is Granny Makwela. The contact details are there. I can even share them with you. Then you can make them available to the operators.
I will do. I will do. All right. So here's an interesting thing that came up the other day. On the 12th of August, during the recent webinar hosted by the Southern African Transport Conference, the CEO of Transnet mentioned a change that they would like to introduce in terms of safety, focusing more closely on their safety investigations, cupping or going a similar route to that of aviation industry, and first investigating before clearing the site. This might still be a work in progress. In her presentation, Portia noted that they had nominated or appointed somebody to lead this. And I would assume that this would be happening in close collaboration with the Rail Safety Regulator. Is this going to have an impact on how things are done and safety? Who wants that?
Freddie, are you taking that?
I think Freddie's internet is just not working with us today.
Okay. On a limb here, look, I expect that the initiative that Transnet, I'm not intimately involved with this process. However, I would expect that the initiatives that they are putting in place is intended to improve their management of safety. If it focuses on investigations, obviously the intention would then be strengthen their capacity of investigating occurrences, how to best manage the occurrence scenes, and with the ultimate goal of reducing these occurrences. So yes, when operators do have such initiatives, yes, we do get involved, especially with Transnet and PRASA and the other operators who consider themselves as major operators. We do get involved in those initiatives so that we are aware that they are addressing the things that they need to address so that they can be incorporated in the SMS. Remember, this will not be something that is done in isolation. It will be part of managing or strengthening the operator's safety management system. So without having too much details or too much insight into the project itself, but this is at least the expectation from our side.
All right, so I've been asked, kindly advise when the training for the protocol, kindly advise when the training is given regarding the protocol. I'm not sure in which protocol. The original question was in relation to the COVID-19. I assume you do regular training on protocols?
Okay, let me shoot first. If we look at I know that the VSCC is the one that has been cited a lot, so I would take that as a cue. We have done training. We have done engagements. Yes, when we introduce new tools, we do engage operators, and we send invites. Yes, I must say, in some instances, we don't get the response from everyone, but we have covered a large mass of operators with regards to introduction of the new with the requirements. As a general requirement, when a regulator publishes standards or determinations or regulations, there is a socio-economic impact assessment system requirement that we engage the operators. So we are also assessed from the DPE's point of view. The DPME, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation's point of view. They monitor that we follow this system, we engage operators, and we deal with the various concerns. So if operators have missed, unfortunately, the opportunity to train, we have to look at our capacity as well. I think we can consider, if really there's a significant requirement for that, we can consider maybe doing another session. We'll see whether we are back to doing it in contact or we can do it virtually. But if there's a serious big requirement like that, we can we can look at our capacity and maybe do another one. But we've done quite a few sessions.
Thank you very much. We have Freddie back again. Okay, so one of the others is one of the other questions was around there being different rules for different operators. So, for example, when it comes to safety regulations and the implementation of, some say that PRASA shouldn't be operating at all. Not my opinion. And then, of course, there was some confusion about whether the AFRA 4000s do comply, don't comply, didn't comply. I mean, how do we get that clarity through communication in terms of addressing those issues?
Okay. All right.
I know this is for you.
I thought Marcella wanted to take this one. It's fine. I'll go ahead.
No, I'll save you very quickly. Let me take it for you, Reginald. And I think it's very important to rely on facts. There is a report that has been issued by the Railway Safety Regulator on the matter regarding the so-called tall, short, fat, slim trains. So if anybody that is interested in the report, they can contact the regulator, and that will inform factually on the issue from the Railway Safety Regulator perspective. But further to that, it's important for industry or those that are in the industry but may not necessarily have an intimate knowledge of the history of the railway sector. Some of the pairways may not necessarily comply with the latest standards. The bridges that were built in 1930 something may not necessarily be in compliance with the technology that we have today. So when they look at those trains, and by the way, are one of the most powerful trains in the world, we'll need to look at the matters in totality, take away the politics, take away the noise around it, but let's look at the facts. And then based on the facts, then we'll come to make a determination. So the report is there, and whether PRASA is supposed to be operating or not operating, we have a view that the infrastructure is almost gone. And perhaps we need to hit a pause button somewhere and work with PRASA's private sector to save whatever is left. And PRASA cannot do this on their own, but they need private sector. They need experienced people from the railway industry to assist them. But the way that we add contracts not being issued, GO contract maintenance not being done, it's going to cost us as a sector and a country very much long term. We may actually end up being an importing country in terms of rail components, but we need to save whatever is left. And the only way to do that, it must be done from the president's office, it must be done from the minister's office, it must be done with private sector as active participants. We must actually have a task team from private sector that will directly have a formal relationship with the minister to advise on the state of the railway sector in South Africa. Leave PRASA out of it. PRASA on its own, we know that they have problems, we want to help them, but the intervention that are sought needs to come from the highest office in this country, and aligning those interventions with the benefits, reviving the manufacturing economy, employment, reskilling, and preparing for the so-called Industry 4.0. But we have to start somewhere. It's not PRASA, it's us as a railway sector, it's us as South Africa, and I'm directly saying this message to the presidency. Invite us, private sector, we want to help. Directly to the Minister of Transport, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, invite us as private sector, we want to help. To the administrator himself, I know that there are issues in terms of protecting his office, but he cannot and he will not fix PRASA on his own without private sector. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcella. Okay, we've got time for, I think, maybe one or two more questions. And I think it's very important that industry understands that once this session is finished, there are three things that are apparently going to happen. The first is that the presentations from today will be made available later today on all the channels, and hopefully we'll have like a little less technical issues than we had when we started this morning. That's the first thing. The second thing is you may continue to ask questions. We will, in all the descriptions, leave the email address that you can continue to ask questions. You're also more than welcome to continue sending me questions. I have spoken with the Rail Safety Regulator. We are going to compile a document of all the questions that have been asked, those that were broadcast and those that were not broadcast for today's session. Those will be put together, and the Rail Safety Regulator will actually flesh those out into, I think, far more detail, which I think will be fantastic. I said there was a third thing and now I can't remember, but we will have that all to you shortly. So let's just we've got a few minutes for a couple of questions. What is the Rail Safety Regulator's stance on level crossings, and have the standards between railroad been finalized? Who's going to take that? We can now see you, Freddie. So I think, hello.
Yeah, it's much better now. Yeah. Yeah. As far as level crossing, you will not have many accidents at level crossings, but when they happen, these are actually high impact, where you lose many lives. So if you look, for example, at our state of safety report, you will see some decline in trust, but we shouldn't let our guard down, because we only need just one or two occurrences in the last attack in the northwest, and that will be about 50 lives lost if it's a bus involved and so on. But nonetheless, we keeping an eye on level crossing is one of our the five issues that we're looking at: level crossings, people structure trains, and so on. But we keep an eye on that. We have a standard on level crossing. We're busy developing. Maybe Reginald will assist on this one. We're developing a standard on even pedestrian level crossing. But the normal level crossing, road over rail, rail over road, or however you want to see it, we have a standard that I think is adequate, and it sets up those minimum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to get to the next question, do I understand correctly that as an OEM, we have access to role players to discuss and present suggestions in terms of safety and communication issues? Marcella, you want this?
Definitely. All right.
Okay, who wants to go first, and then we'll go to Marcella.
I think Marcella can have it.
Okay.
The purpose of this partnership and the reason that we're having this engagement is to precisely set a tone that those conversations can be done. But obviously, RSR does not have unlimited resources in terms of dealing with each and every one of us. So through the technical team that will be formed under the RRA, those issues will then be dealt with RSR on the team that they will also build or nominate on their side. So all those issues will be dealt with from the RRA side and RSR. RRA will be an in-between body to address those issues. Anything that we don't understand, the standards that we don't understand, they will be addressed. Is the relationship that we are building. RSR is reaching out to industry, and they have identified and formally recognizing the RRA as a body that they will work with in developing industry standards, amongst other things that they may deem necessary, but also that we may deem necessary as well. So this is a partnership. This is a body that is available for all industry players to utilize to communicate with the Railway Safety Regulator. And I may also add that we are available if you want to have a conversation with the RRA. Our email address is info@rra.co.za, and my email address is misela@rra.co.za. I will happily engage with you, and so that we build one industry, we communicate in one voice under the banner of the association, and together we have power to change the railway industry, to inform what takes place in the industry, and let's stand united so that we can achieve what we want to achieve for our businesses, and most importantly, make profits. Thank you.
We have lost sound there.
Oh, sorry. I'm having a problem. Okay, can you hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Can hear you now. All right, sure.
What is the model used to determine safety permit fees? Are the fees used for the Rail Safety Regulator, or do these go to Treasury? If not to Treasury, is this not a conflict of interest? Who wants this?
But can I also go, Mr. Go ahead, Mr. But can I also have a turn for you?
I've seen enough of you.
Right.
So we're going to go you, and then we'll go Misela. Go, Freddie.
No, then I'll go.
Hey?
Okay, okay, let me go first then. There is a determination on a yearly basis. We issue a determination on the safety permit fees and application fees. This determination is provided for in the Act, so we are allowed to do that. But it is published by the Department of Transport, right? It's we do that on an annual basis. It's also a risk-based determination where we look at your level of activity as an operator. We look at your challenges and so on, the level of risk actually, and then that then tells us that we're going to have to spend so much effort to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do as far as safety is concerned in terms of monitoring oversight on a particular operator depending on your risk level, and that then informs the safety permit fee that you need to pay to the RSR. And these funds are not forwarded to Treasury. These are the funds that we then use, like I said, to exercise our safety oversight. Is provided for in our Act, but we expend those funds in our safety oversight activities. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Marcella, you had comment?
I've got a view. We've got a view as industry on the safety permits, but I think the conversation is a conversation that maybe misplaced with the with RSR as a regulator. I think it's a conversation that we need to have with Department of Transport. Our view as well is that the fees that have been charged actually are a barrier to new entrants, but further to that, they are making railway business unnecessarily expensive and therefore placing the railway industry at disadvantage in relation to other modes of transport. But that is a conversation that we need to have with the department. But I must also state that if government want to have a regulator, it is government responsibility to adequately fund that regulator. Private sector cannot fund the regulator so that the regulator regulates private sector. Government wants to have a regulator, government must fund a regulator adequately, then to make sure that the burden does not lie with private sector. Thank you.
All right, so I've got the last two questions. And I decided to go over the 12 o'clock thing since we had so many technical issues this morning. So the last two questions, the first one is the RSR SMS determination a European standard, and is it not a duplication with SANS 3000? We'll go. No.
Okay. Look, we must admit that in developing various regulatory tools, we do benchmarking with what the rest of the world is doing. I'll be the first to accept that, yes, we've taken a lot from what the Europeans are doing. But if you look at our Act in its inception, it was developed based on a Canadian model with a bit of a European flavor and Australian input. So it makes sense to have learnings from what the rest of the world is doing. What we have done, we have adapted it to suit it, to suit our environment. Yes, we have had quite a number of concerns and cries in terms of onerous requirements, in terms of what is captured in that SMS requirement. However, what we have done, look, the most important thing is that we need to make sure that all risks are known, they are identified, they are mitigated. You have demonstrated to the regulator that this is how you're going to manage them within your SMS. So I think that is the essence. Now, the question of SANS 3000-1 and the determination, if you look at the two documents, we do say that these should be read together. They are not in conflict. They are complementing. The standards will give you more detailed requirements of what is expected in your SMS. So, as the RSR, look, we are a progressing entity. Obviously, where we need to make improvements in terms of how we communicate the SMS requirements to the industry. Yes, we will definitely make those improvements. But in essence, the determination or the standard communicates to the industry. These are the requirements that we expect to see you manage your safety, your safety or the safety issues within the industry, captured in the SMS. So we communicate the SMS requirements in different forms. Yes, we are looking at ways of simplifying that, and we will engage the industry. Obviously, when we make those improvements and those amendments when they become necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I have
Freddie, I think has a point. Maybe just
okay, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add on, I'll be very brief. The SMS determination is just its genesis in Europe, like with it, but it's important to say also that it has an South African flavor, so it is fit for purpose, right? And then if you look at the safety permit application guide itself, there's a determination, but the safety permit application guide, as an operator, you are then guided in terms of the requirements, the exemptions that could apply to you depending on the size or the risk, the size of your operation and the risk as well. So if you are a very small operator, a class C operator, that's what we call them, transporting less than 200,000 tons per annum. If you look at all the requirements, there's not a lot that will require you to comply with. And then it's a bit different too for a medium risk operator, and then to a high risk operator, someone like TFR and Brass. But yeah, again, it is a good thing that it does. Its origin, there's best practice. We are a passive regulator. It's best practice. So we went to Europe. That's fine. But it is a fit for purpose that it was customized to what we need. It's not everything that that is an EU SMS, but we customize it and it is fit for purpose for the South African environment and for SADC actually. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm going to make this the last question. If everybody's in agreement, nod your heads. Okay. You just haven't All right. So, good morning. My name is Sandili Sekondo from AfriTrack Rail. Can RSR proudly affirm? So I'm just reading this. To exercise its mandate, especially regarding the issues of communication in the railway working environment, in particular between train driving personnel and train control officers, section managers, focusing on order of preference. Metro Rail, the new compliant EMUs, have only been deployed on the Mamelodi routes. Even way before lockdown period, some routes use 10Ms and older fleet, which are non-compliant to the RSR's directive. If I recall, the deadline was 2013. They've been using cell phones for authorities, I suppose that means authorization, and communication, which is prohibited, and according to most investigations, are the main cause of numerous accidents, derailments, and collisions. If not, what are the challenges? What are their challenges? So I think it's a combination of a question and a statement, but I'm sure you can take it from there.
Reginald, do you take it from the VSCC point of view?
I think it's a complicated question because some of the areas are not very clear. But I think one of the acknowledgements in that letter, what is implied is that, yes, communication has been found to be a critical issue, and this also supports our effort to develop and together with the industry and to publish the verbal safety critical communication protocol. So it is exactly for that reason that this protocol was developed to deal with the risks in the industry which emanates as a result of failures in communication. So it addresses various requirements in terms of verbal safety critical communication, from the language to the methods, to the equipment, to the issues of connectivity. Those kind of things are addressed in the protocol. So from our side as a regulator, that is one of the things, or that is one of the interventions that we have introduced to address that risk that relates to safety critical communication failures or problem related to that. The next part deals with a specific project. I think maybe Freddie might want to deal with this part.
Yeah.
We are working with PRASA in terms of their introduction and implementation of various technologies, whether it's new locomotives, whether it's new train control systems, authorization systems, whatever new introductions into their system, which changes the SMS per se or the risk scale. The operators are required to make submission to the RSR. Then we monitor the implementation of those introductions of the new technologies according to that submission, and we assess that submission to check that we are satisfied that it meets the safety requirements. I know, Freddie, I'm taking a bit on what you're going to answer, but that is why in some of the areas we allow phased-in introduction of these technologies. For example, if you want to introduce a train set throughout the network, we will look at specific sections, and as soon as we are satisfied with you meeting the requirements per those sections, then yes, we are able to do authorizations. But maybe Freddie can give specific response to the EMU.
Yeah, but that's good enough, I think, Reginald. Thank you very much for that. But I have a concern here that there could be a safety issue that we're being alerted to. You understand? Yeah. So I don't know, because I want to answer this in detail, because there could be a safety issue. Use of cell phones in that line, so on and so on. There could be a safety issue that I need to deal with that with correctly. And I wanted to, maybe Mesela or you, Philippa, can facilitate the platform to get this a question to me, to the office. I think it needs attention. There could be a serious issue there.
All right.
Behind. Yeah.
I will get that question to you right now. Well, when I'm finished here, because, all right, guys, are we happy that we've done enough? I think we should just do a little round robin and a closing session, or just closing statements. Ms. Stella, may I start with you?
Thank you, Philippa, and I'd like to thank everybody that has made time to form part of this important conversation. And in closing, as a Railroad Association, we encourage permit holders, anyone is interested in the railway sector or operate in the railway sector, to be a member of the Railroad Association, to ensure that our desires of what we want to see in the sector are realized. Let's lobby for our industry. And partnership is going to be key. Open access in our lifetime, and hopefully soon, before the end of the year. And also perhaps need to find some form of mechanism that we're able to report these issues to RSR, maybe through the RRA, where safety is being compromised by other operators. But in a nutshell, I would like to thank RSR for being a partner in the safety space, and we are here to assist them, to work with them, and to develop industry that works in the best of the country. And further to this is that if we get things right in terms of safety in South Africa, in terms of export market, we do not necessarily need to export physical products, but we'll be able to export skills, we'll be able to export our standards, we'll be able to export the technologies that come from South Africa. So this is an opportunity for us to use South Africa as a base, ensure that by we inform the standards on the continent that works for Africa, not necessarily that are ideal for the European countries. We are in Africa. African standards shall be applied in Africa. Africa for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anna. Freddie, I'm going to let you have your say.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Really, just to say thank you to everyone for making time for this, landmark, but a very crucial conversation. We do, as the RSR, encourage this, association with or membership with the RRA. It's going to be beneficial in many ways. There are many tools that we're going to be developing. For example, the safety risk model and all these standards that we've alluded to earlier. And it will be very important because this needs to be implemented at some point. It will be very important for these concerns from however small you are as an operator or an OEM, whoever you are in the race. It will be important for you to have those concerns, to be raised through a platform like this, the RRA. But again, we welcome your comments at any point, and thank you again for making time. Much appreciated. And thank you, Philippa, for facilitating this. Thank you.
My pleasure. And Reginald, your turn, finally.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. Thanks for affording the RSR to engage with our stakeholders to clarify some of the requirements that we have for the industry. I'm hoping that it did assist to some extent. It is impossible to answer and address everything within a space of 2 hours. And that is why I'm going to encourage engagement of the operators. Please be an engaged partner. When we develop tools, as an example, we have a process where these tools are published for comments. I think we need to have that habit and practice of influencing the things that govern us. I think maybe as a society in our country, we need to have a practice of engaging with the tools that govern us. I mean, I don't know how many people give comments to the various papers that are published before they become legislation. So I think it's important that the operators do engage with the RSR. Yes, the RRA's involvement is going to assist, I believe, in that instance. But I think you have much at stake in this as the RSR. So do influence the things that we are developing because these are the tools that are going to regulate you as an industry. So when we call for public comments, please do comment. When we publish documents for inputs, please give your inputs so that we can address these issues collectively. And I believe that with partnership, with working together, we should be able to turn this tide and to improve our industry that we love so much. I wish everyone the best and thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you very much to everybody, and that draws to an conclusion for the end of our first live stakeholder engagement session. Hopefully when we get to the second live stakeholder engagement session. So again, thank you to the industry at large, all the presenters, the Railway Safety Regulator, the Railroad Association. Thanks for making the time to join us. Again, we'll have these presentations up and available for you as soon as possible, and definitely today. On screen now is the email address for you to continue supplying or sending questions. It's comms@rsr.org. You can also continue to email me or WhatsApp me those details that you have. And again, thank you very much.